everybody to the August edition of the TipHaus Insider webinar. This is one of my favorite webinars to present. This is GM training. So if you are here with us, you probably are either new to TipHaus or new to a business that's been using TipHaus, or maybe you just need a refresher. This is the place to be if you've forgotten anything about TipHaus or you just want a quick run through. I'm going to do my best to show you every piece of the product and go into details. I'll take you through the agenda here in a moment. Before we do that, I do want to introduce myself. My name is Michael Corson. I am the Director of Customer Success here at TipHaus. I've been here for quite some time. I'm located in Columbia, but I'm originally from Montana. You'll notice on the right-hand side of your screen, there is a section where I believe you can drop comments, you can communicate. I see some people kind of sharing where they're from. Go ahead and say hi to everybody. Great way to connect with other people on the webinar. And also a great place for you to drop questions. So if you have questions throughout the webinar, go ahead and drop them in there. We have a team of support people who will be handling questions as we go. So you'll probably get your questions answered in real time. I'll also be covering a handful of questions at the end so that everybody can kind of benefit from them. As always, we know the restaurant industry is a very busy industry. There's always people popping in and out. So if you get a food delivery or a keg delivery or something, if you have to hop, do not worry. There's a recording that will go out to everybody after the call. Also, if you forget to ask a question, or maybe you think of a question late tonight, you think, man, I should have really asked that one. Don't hesitate to reach out. You can always reach out to support. You can always reach out after the fact. We definitely want to make sure that you're comfortable with TipHaus, that you're familiar with it, and just able to get everything out of it that you can. That's really our goal here, especially in the support department, is just make sure that you have all the tools necessary to get the most out of the product. Without further ado, let's jump into the agenda. Really, what I'm trying to answer for you today is a handful of key questions. And sometimes when you join a company that's been using TipHaus for some time, or maybe your onboarding was 3 years ago with us, some of these are kind of easy to forget or easy to miss. So I just want to clarify for you, what is TipHaus? What does TipHaus do? And then what do you need to know to use TipHaus day to day? Obviously, that last one is a bit different depending on your role, depending on your business, depending on your use case. So this is going to be a broad kind of overview of everything that's inside of it, so you know what's available to you. If you still have questions about your specifics, about what your specific processes are, or anything like that, definitely reach out to support. Anytime you're in the client dashboard, you'll see a little chat icon in the bottom right. You can book time with us. We can have a one-on-one call. We really do love connecting with everybody and just making sure that you get, in addition to these broad overviews, get dedicated support that's clearly in line with what you do at your specific business. Without any further ado, let's hop into the client dashboard. This is where you're going to be interacting with TipHaus the most. You'll notice a lot of pages on the client dashboard. I'm going to cover these 5 specifically, and then a couple of free add-on pages that I'll cover at the end. Some of these pages are things you'll use every day. Some of these pages are things that are there for you that are more bells and whistles. I'm going to go through each one. So we'll do homepage, tip distribution logic, the breakdown, reporting, and then settings. And I'll give you an idea of what buttons are on those pages, exactly what you need to know, and exactly what you will be doing on each of those pages. It's going to be a lot of information coming at you all at once. So rather than have you just drink from a fire hose and hope you retain some of that information, I am going to go back after this, and I'm going to kind of walk through what a standard payroll process might look like for you, so you have an idea of, what of these pages is really the most important information that you're going to need to remember. All right, I'm going to change my screen over here, and I'm going to pop over to the TipHaus client dashboard. This is at client.tiphaus.com. Most of you are going to be familiar with this kind of a view. When you come in here for the first time, or when you come in here the next time, you will notice up at the top, you'll either have one location if you're a 1-unit restaurant, or if you have multiple locations in your org, you will see a drop down. Or if you're an enterprise and you have multiple orgs with multiple pay periods, you might see the ability to choose different orgs and then choose different locations. Do be aware whenever you're navigating the dashboard, which location you're viewing. You'll see here, I have my 3 fake restaurants, my Bogey's Bonanza, my Quixote Valley, and my Seagull Stacks. As always, I'm going to be using Bogey's Bonanza for these kinds of webinar demonstrations. When I have Bogey's Bonanza selected, the only thing I will see in this view are things that relate to Bogey's Bonanza. So this is Bogey's Bonanza's sales and Bogey's Bonanza's work shifts and their rules and all of that information. If you do manage multiple locations, and maybe you're in a payroll process and you want to see everything all at once, you certainly can come in and choose all locations. when you export, when you're navigating, just be aware of what you have selected so that you're seeing only the relevant information that you're after. I'm going to start on the left-hand side here. You may see this collapse. You may see this expanded. I'm going to start at the home page and kind of give you an idea of what's going on here. The home page you can think of as metrics and kind of infographics. So if you're a data person and you like data-driven insights, so you like looking at large periods of data and seeing what's going on in your restaurant, this is where you're going to spend quite a bit of time. I would classify this as more of a bells and whistles kind of page. So this is not something you need to visit in order to run your payroll, but is definitely a place that you come to visit when you want to see, hey, how healthy are my rules? Are they producing the results that I want? What kind of key performance indicators are my staff hitting? And is other people that are hitting the high end of those metrics, and maybe people that need a little bit more nudging? I have a few things pulled up right here, but you can go ahead and click away. In TipHaus in general, you can feel comfortable clicking around. Obviously, if you're going to change rules or do things like that and you're uncomfortable or maybe unsure of what the result will be, do be aware you can click the chat button. You won't see it on my screen here, but it lives right down here in the bottom right. Click it, ask us. We can be there with you. We can help you make changes so that you're really, really confident that you're getting the results you're going to want. And then, of course, if you do make changes, always, always, always check the data, check the breakdown page, and make sure that those changes produce the result you want. So I'm going to give you an example of what I have set up here. You can click your own buttons. You can set this up however you want. Here in this showing screen, I have tip revenue by employee, tip percentages, tip revenue per hour, take home by store. And I'm going to go ahead and add in a couple, and I'm going to remove a couple. So I'm going to take in take home per hour by job code. And I'm going to remove take home by store, and I'm going to remove tip revenue by hour. So you'll see the dashboard reflects my selections. Some interesting things that you might want to dive into here would probably be tip percentage and take home per hour by job code. These are pretty frequently ones that we see getting used across most restaurants, but there's a lot of selections in there for you to choose from. Tip percentage, if you go ahead and click these graphs, will show you, based on the employee, what percentage of tip is getting left by the customers for each of these employees that's making sales. So Jane Ferry, who's going to be our test subject for today, you'll see me jump into her employee app account. She's doing extremely well. When she interacts with customers, and this is just yesterday, she's getting an average of 25% tips, which is extraordinary. So she's doing something right. Employees are loving her. She's doing great. Where Antoine here on the other side is only getting 13% tips. So maybe something in the way he's interacting with tables or interacting with customers just isn't having that same impact. So nice data here that you could use to say, hey, maybe Jane's in a position where maybe she should be a leader or a trainer or something like that. And maybe Antoine just needs a little bit of extra nudging, or maybe Antoine's just a brand new employee and still getting the hang of things. You can also come up here and change the date range. So if you wanted, you could come through and say, hey, I really want to see this, not just for August 3rd, but I really want to see it for the last, rolling 30 days or something like that. Come in and make your selection and apply it, and you'll get these views in different ways. And zooming out, you'll see most of the staff here is doing more or less equally well with employees. Take home per hour by job code shows you how well your rules are doing. So here, bartenders are making quite a bit in tips. Managers are taking home tips, which is probably not something we want. So we can set up automation to route those tips away from managers to servers and bartenders who should be taking them home. And then servers are making this much amount in tips per hour. So just different insights, different metrics, and ways of looking at the data that you might not have had if you were coming from an Excel spreadsheet or something like that. Definitely, there are ways that you can dig into this data, really drill down, and then figure out, hey, are my rules producing the results I want? Am I having trouble retaining bartenders because they're not taking home enough tips? Well, you can come in here and see, like, how are bartenders taking home tips compared to other job codes, and which job codes could we, maybe take from and route some more over to bartenders or away from them if that's your issue. So all kinds of ways that you can use this. I just want to kind of spark some ideas. So if you have any questions about this, let us know. Let's say that we, wanted to have a rule to say, hey, managers shouldn't be taking home any tips. Well, where we set up that information is here on tip distribution logic. When we're on tip distribution logic here, you can set up automation. You can set up all kinds of stuff to take inputs that come into TipHaus, your sales and your work shifts and your job codes and that kind of stuff, and say, hey, how should these tips that are rung under servers be routed across the board? So here I have a fairly simple setup. I got a portion of server tips going to bartenders for tipping out the bartenders for the drinks they make. And then I have bartenders pooling on the back end. So this is the way it's always going to work in TipHaus. Any percentage shares are called tip shares. So 10% of server tips going to bartenders, that's a percentage share. So a tip sharing rule. And then tip pools would be the remainder. So in this case, servers take home the rest after they tip out their bartenders, where bartenders would put their money into this pool. In this case, they're splitting evenly. You could also do things in here like change the way that we do that logic. So maybe you want to say time of sale and say, bartenders should only take a tip home if they were present for that sales open to close window. So were you there when those drinks were being made, when that customer was being served? Well, you'll get a cut of a tip this way. All kinds of customization here. We could also do something like this for those managers and say, hey, managers should not retain any tips. So maybe we have a manager as a staff rule. We can backdate it. We can send it backwards in time and have it recalculate. And we want to say, 100% of anything that comes under a manager really should not go to the managers at all. It should come away from them and then be split maybe equally between servers and bartenders, or maybe bartenders take a little more of that if you wanted to configure points. All kinds of different logic settings. Most GMs will not have access to this. There's different roles and permissions in TipHaus. You'll see here in a minute, what is an org admin? What is a GM? What are their different rules and permissions at a very high level without diving into custom roles and custom permissions, which are available. Your org admin is going to have available all the options that affect locations globally or affect the org globally. So ability to change rules, ability to make mass changes. GMs will have the ability to come in, look at that data, but they won't be able to click edit. They won't be able to click new rules. If you do need to do that, we'll just loop in an org admin and we can help you. And again, if you want to change your rule set or anything like that, don't hesitate to reach out. We can definitely help. So this is the way you can kind of read rules. You'll say, who's giving out? What are they giving out? What percentage are they giving out? When we calculate the hours worked and who is eligible to receive a cut of this percentage, are we looking at their total hours in the day, or do they have to be present during the sale, or is it hours agnostic and we're just going to split it evenly? And then which dates are the rules in effect for? So in this case, both of these rules started on the 31st and will be only affecting the 31st onward. So tons of stuff. We could spend a whole session talking about rules, but I just want to give you an idea of what tip distribution looks like. I'm going to come down to the breakdown page. This is probably the most important page that you're going to have to think about. This is where you're going to do most of your work. So when you're on this breakdown page, you'll notice here that there are different views. This is a new feature. I would highly recommend you go watch our last webinar where we went over these filters and views. Most importantly for you is there's a compact view that shows some columns, and then there's a detailed view that splits this out a little bit further. When you look at the detailed view, everything on here reads left to right. So see, we're looking at yesterday right now, and you can see which employees rang in sales, what kind of tips and service charges were on those sales. Tip share net is how much an employee gave or received through those rules. So you can see servers are giving out to bartenders. Bartenders are receiving. If you were to click on one of these, you could see individual rules that are affecting this employee. And you can even see individual sales. So you can see Carson is receiving a cut of a tip, and Vicenta, the server, is sharing 10% of that credit card tip with bartenders. All three of these bartenders were present during the sale, but Antoine actually worked a few more minutes on the sale than the other bartenders. So TipHaus is very granular, very checkable. Everything is exportable. So if you wanted to export this, you definitely could. But just nice, easy ways to view your data just by coming in here to the breakdown and then clicking these blue numbers to give yourself more information. Similarly, tip pool net is going to be here as well. This shows the difference between what you put into the pool versus what you took out. So if you were to click here, you could see every ticket that was in the pool and what every bartender got on that ticket. So in this case, bartenders are depositing tips into the pool and then taking a cut out, while other bartenders are also taking a cut. So they're all kind of grouping together and then pulling out. You'll see hours worked, and then you'll see take home here. And this is the big number in TipHaus that we're driving towards. So if you think of anything in TipHaus at all, Take home is the biggest thing to remember from this webinar. This is after all TipHaus's calculations that you have set up, what is the employee actually owed for the day that they worked? So if we read this left to right, what you get is Jane Ferry rings in $55 in tips and $5 in service charges for about $60, gives away 10% of it, $6.06, and retains $54.52. Reading it for a bartender, Carson has 105 plus 406, so about $110. Gets another $18 from the servers. Tip pool net puts a little bit more into the pool than what he takes out. He's a high earner. And so if you add that all up, it's 105 plus 4 plus 18 minus 11 gives you the take home. So kind of what did you ring? What did TipHaus calculate in the tip share net and tip pool net columns? And what is the end amount that's owed? So very easy to read. This is also where you're going to export any payroll documents. So when you come in here and click export, you will see any reports that are available here. If you have a payroll report or something like that, we have lots of reports built in here. You select the report you want, select the date range, export it, and then upload that off to your payroll, and you're good to go. So ideally, the ideal payroll process is you just come in here to the breakdown, everything looks clean, everything's looking good, export, and you're off to the races. Coming down here, you'll see the next page is Earn Tip Access. Earn Tip Access is another add-on. It is a free add-on. It's awesome. It's there for your staff. I'll talk about it at the end, along with QR tipping. For now, I just want to touch briefly on reporting. There's a couple key pieces on the reporting page that you want to know. The sales list here on reporting is going to match the sales list at your POS. So if you ever wanted to see, what TipHaus is using as our inputs, this is the page. We kind of grab sales, we grab work shifts here from your POS or labor system if you also use labor system. We look at those hours worked, we look at those job codes, we know what sales you're making, what role you were in when you were making those sales, and we run all of that information through the tip distribution logic, and then we put your outputs on the breakdown page. And I mentioned at the beginning, this is a lot of information, kind of drinking from a fire hose for sure. So I do want to, just stick with me and just remind you, we will go through a kind of quick top-down process for payroll so you can kind of clue into the key pieces here. So reporting has your inputs. It also has historical data. Every time a pay period closes, it will save a snapshot of that for you. And then any reports that you have generated will be listed here as well. So if you click on that export button and you want to go see something you exported, it will live here for a period of time. But this is, outside of the breakdown page, probably the second most visited page. There's a lot of cool tips and tricks you can use here. You can customize teams if you have a big event and only a handful of servers worked it or something like that, and you want to just give out those tips on a big sale to a handful of servers. You can do those kinds of custom adjustments here. If you want to change the job code on the sale or edit the start or end time of a sale in TipHaus, you can do that kind of stuff here. Do be aware that TipHaus is a one-way street in terms of data flow. This is probably the most important thing to remember about this page. So any change you make in your POS or any change you make in your labor system, TipHaus will pick up on and will bring in. So we're going to automatically sync every 15 minutes. You can also click the sync button here and force a sync to happen immediately. So if I want to sync back 2 days, I could just say, hey, go grab me a fresh set of sales and a fresh set of shifts. Grab whatever's currently over in the POS system. Anything you change in TipHaus will not force back into your POS system and will not force back into your labor system. So very, very important that you, if you're making changes, probably the best way to do it most of the time is going to be to make those in the POS, make those in the labor system, and let them come over to TipHaus. That way everything matches one-to-one. So POS matches TipHaus, matches paychecks. But there are good use cases, from time to time, maybe you want to make a change to something just to affect tip logic, but you don't want it to affect wages or something like that. You could make edits in TipHaus. Just be aware of what the data flow is. It's from the POS through TipHaus and then generates an export. Does offer a lot of creative solutions for a lot of different things. And then just be aware, too, if you do make an edit to something in TipHaus, you can always make further edits. So if you make an adjustment and it's incorrect, don't panic. You can always reach out for help, but you can always also revert the change. Again, QR tipping I'm going to touch on in a minute here. I'm going to come to settings. There's not too much you need to know about settings. Each location will be here. You can see your employee list, your job code list, your sales item categories, any revenue centers you might have, any general settings you might have for the location. You can also control users. So if you're an org admin or a GM, you can create users at your level. So you can bring other people into the software. You can also view any employee app users, and I'll touch on what the employees see here in a moment. And then you can also update the pay period settings. Again, global settings are going to be locked behind those org admins so that not everybody has access to everything in the software. GMs are going to have somewhat limited permissions, but they'll be able to run the product day to day, while org admins will be able to set it up and make broad scale changes. You also have access to custom roles, which I'm not going to go into too much, but if you have a need for a unique permission set and say, hey, maybe I just want my payroll person to just have access to the breakdown page because they really just need to access that one export button, you could definitely set up a role that could do that for you. That is TipHaus in a nutshell. I'd say in a nutshell that it's quite a bit of information. Before we go much further, there's a question that always comes up, which is, what is the employee app and what are my employees actually seeing in the app? They're going to see everything on that breakdown page, but they're going to see that instead of in a table view, they're going to see it in a ledger view, so kind of top down, and they're not going to see the other employees' tips. So they'll get a sense of how the rules are functioning. They'll get a lot of transparency. They'll see their own shifts, which is awesome for all kinds of reasons. But they won't be able to kind of reverse engineer what other employees are making. So I'll show you the employee app really briefly here. A handful of key questions before I show you that. What do my employees see in the app? That's what I'll show you in a second. Will my employees be able to view tips that their coworkers are earning? No. This is a level of transparency we haven't provided yet because it tends to cause friction. There's enough for them to understand how their tips are getting calculated. What if my employees work at more than one location? Well, so long as their email is the same in the settings menu, they will see a drop-down where they will be able to see each location they work at. Can org admins and managers access the employee app? Currently, yes. If you log into my.tiphaus with your client dashboard credentials, you will be able to back into the employee apps. You won't be able to make changes, but you'll be able to do a read-only view. And then what value do you see employees getting out of the employee app? This is a big one. The employees will get confidence in their tips. They'll understand how things are being made, or how calculations are being made, how we're coming to their end number, which is fantastic. That kind of transparency builds trust, which translates down the line to all kinds of things, loyalty and longevity with a company, and wanting to stay with a company that is providing them with a tool that gives them insights into their tips. There's a lot of employees that come to us from restaurants that are doing everything on a spreadsheet, and so everything's kind of opaque and behind the scenes, and they don't have visibility into it. And there's always a bit of a question of, are my tips being handled correctly? This kind of removes that layer of fear and distrust and just gives them the transparency. There's also a value in this for you as a manager, which is that employees having access to the employee app allows them to surface things earlier and to catch their own mistakes. So if you have employees that are constantly clocking in and out incorrectly, get them on the employee app. They can go in there, they can see their tips. They'll say to themselves, well, this doesn't seem right. They'll pop over to the work shifts page and they'll say, well, I clocked in under the wrong job code, or I forgot to clock out, or something like that. And they'll come let you know a little bit earlier, and kind of get a sense of, what is the most important thing for them in order to get tipped out correctly, which is always going to be clock in and out of the right job code and clock in and out at the right times. I'm going to pop over into the employee app now. And I mentioned I would be doing Jane Ferry as our test subject here. So when an employee logs in, they're going to see their take home. They're going to see pay period options, very similar to what we saw in the dashboard. And they're going to see this ledger view. So what did they ring in? What did TipHaus calculate for tip shares and tip pools? What's their actual take home? How much did they send or receive through tip sharing rules? Different key performance indicators that maybe they didn't have access to. How much are guests tipping them? That's something they can now track. Across the bottom here, they'll see work shifts coming in. They can see when they clocked in, when they clocked out. They can see their job code and all that kind of stuff. They can see metrics, which is awesome for them. If you maybe want to see your take home per hour over a big date range, or maybe just over a whole pay period, you can get a sense of saying, hey, in addition to my hourly wage, I'm also making $13.07 an hour in tips on average over this date range that I've selected. It's a fantastic way for your employees to kind of get an understanding of their tips rather than just take a kind of blind sum of money and put it in their wallet and spend it. They'll be able to track it. They'll be able to understand it a little better. This is also where employees can sign up for that Earn Tip Access program, which I'll tell you a little bit about. But if your employees are in here and your organization offers it, they can sign up for our different payout options. And then probably most importantly, and maybe most easy to miss in the current form, is this profile page. You can update payout methods, update cards, that kind of stuff. You can also contact support. So if your employees have questions and you don't know how to answer them, you can always send them over to us. We'll do our best to help. Obviously, we can answer anything about the account setup, but we might loop you in if we need some context on how an event was structured or something like that. But in general, we want to keep as much off your plate as possible, which is just another thing we offer to you as a business. And then tip distribution settings is the last thing I'll touch on before I kind of start wrapping up and touching on a few things before Q&A. Tip distribution settings, this will show the staff member what rules you have in place. It is not the full scale view that you see in the client dashboard, but it is, again, enough to show you, who's distributing to who, what kind of percentages are in place, how things work, how things are being calculated and that kind of stuff, so that they can come here to the employee app and check the rule settings rather than constantly asking you. So the more you can point your staff in the direction of this employee app, the more you will find yourself saving times and find yourself not being stuck answering so many employee questions over and over and over again, which is always a win. All right, I promised I would boil this down to something a little more simple, and here we go. The average payroll process. This is different for every business. So if you do a lot of events, or there's a lot of custom team adjustments or custom things like that, this might take a little bit longer, but ideally we get this down so that tips as a whole process for you is 10, 15 minutes a pay period. And it goes something like this. Eyeball the breakdown page and make adjustments in the POS. So what this looks like is you would come in, select your location, go to the last pay period and say, okay, what's going on here? Well, there's a couple notifications. This would show you missed clockouts. This would also show you, in this case, there's managers taking home tips. That's because I only made that manager rule effective from the 31st forward. So I would want to fix this. I would want to make sure this is looking good. So I could unlock that last pay period. I could say, oh, this manager rule really needs to run all the way back to the start of the previous pay period. I would let this resync. If there was missed clockouts that need to be adjusted, I would make those adjustments in my labor system or my POS. Either let TipHaus sync it in or sync it in manually with the sync button. Basically just say, hey, did everybody clock in and out correctly? Are there managers taking home tips that shouldn't be taking home tips? And TipHaus is very, very quick. So you'll see right there, it just recalculated. And now this manager is not taking home tips. So if I refresh my page, we should see those alerts go away. And there we go. Manager is now having no take home, right? So you're going to do your due diligence, look at everything, make sure that people clocked in and out correctly. And then once you've made any changes and everything's looking good and the breakdown is looking the way you want it, really all you're going to do is export from the breakdown. So again, that export button is front and center. You'll see it all over TipHaus for different pages and different purposes, but it's always this blue export with a envelope symbol. Select it, select the pay period, select the report you want, grab it, and then upload it off to payroll. So ideally, it's that simple. If there is a payroll crunch, this is where I would definitely encourage you, use that chat button and let us know. Say, hey, I have payroll in 4 hours and I see a lot of things that don't look right, or I need help adjusting these sales, or I have invalid take homes I don't understand, or how can I quickly update all these missed clockouts or things like that. or can you just help me take a look and make sure this is correct? We will always be there to help you and be able to give you some insight. But yeah, ideally, this is the process. It's that easy. I mentioned there's a lot of pages in TipHaus that are fun, but really the ones you're really going to care about are generally going to be that breakdown page and the reporting page. Those are the two. Really quickly, I do want to touch on these other two pages, the Earn Tip Access page and the QR tipping page, which we call Cheers by TipHaus, our QR product. These are both free for businesses. Earn Tip Access is fantastic. Both of these are kind of employee driven. Everything I showed you just now is for your business and to make that as easy as possible. There's some employee benefits with transparency. But Earn Tip Access specifically and QR have a mostly employee centric kind of benefit program with them. Earn Tip Access is a way to give your employee access to their tips early. So basically, as you live and breathe in TipHaus and things are working well, you could turn this on. Employees could sign up if they want to get electronic payouts. The manager would go in and click payout, and anybody who's signed up and wants their tips early will get it drawn from your bank account and paid out to the employees. There's no float for businesses. It is incredibly easy to use, and employees really want this. There's a cool little study I'm going to share with you in a moment that kind of shows a bit of what we've heard from employees across TipHaus about what they like about getting access to tips early and all those benefits. Generally and historically, employees are getting cash tips anyway, so very nice for them to be able to get tips early without having to go through cash and envelopes and all the operational processes that entails. So what I always like to say, if you are fresh to a business and you're the GM and you're in this new role and you're joining this webinar, if you want a free way to make an impact on your employees and really champion something cool for the employees, talk to us about this. We can bring in your leadership, we can bring you in, we can walk through how to get set up. Very easy. Essentially, we just get business approval from somebody who has ownership in the company. We get a bank account linked by somebody who has access to the business bank account. And then your employees can start registering and you can start paying out. We'll guide you every step of the way. And again, free for businesses to use. I should mention here too, House Money and House Direct, you'll see these terms scattered throughout TipHaus with your time with us. House Money is our own card. So if you use that one, there's no fee for the employee to get their tips. House Direct is almost like a direct deposit. It's more of a direct card. So you could link an existing Wells Fargo or Chase card or whatever you have. Link that debit card up, and then when you get paid out, the employee just covers a small fee to cover the kind of ACH out to the card, and then they're good to go. Or I should say OCT out to the card. Cheers by TipHaus is similar. Another thing that's just there for employees, but rather than get access to tips early, this is just to generate more tips. We've seen all kinds of use cases for this, from putting a QR code on a bar for an event, and people can scan that QR code and leave tips, even if they didn't have any cash on hand, or maybe the boss is covering the event and they still want to tip the bartender. They can do that without needing to make a sale or anything like that, or to buy anything. They can just scan and tip. We've seen things for valet parking. We've seen this used lots of different ways. Putting on to-go bags or something like that, or for your delivery drivers. So they show up, they deliver the food, and the guest says, "Oh, I wish I had some cash to tip you." Well, no problem. You can scan the QR code and get it. It may not generate massive amounts of tips for your staff, but even extra $100 a year or $20 a month or whatever it might come out to definitely makes a difference for your staff. So another cool thing you can do, again, we just turn it on, link your bank account, guests scan the QR codes you build, money gets forced back into your account and then out to your staff. So awesome. If you have any interest in this, let us know. Thank you for coming, and do not hesitate to reach out. You can always reach out to support at TipHaus. You can always hit that chat button. You do not need to wait for a webinar to get answers to your questions. Definitely don't sit on them. Ask us whatever you need. If you come to your sales rep or to your support rep, or just send a blank email to anybody, or manage to get a hold of the CEO. It doesn't matter who you're going to get a hold of. We're all going to be willing to help, and we'll all get you to the right point. So reach out. If there is a solution, we will find it for you, and we'll work with you to make sure that everything's going well. Hopefully, this was a good refresher for you, or if you're new to TipHaus, welcome. Hopefully this is useful for you. We'll have this on the YouTube channel. We'll have this scattered about. We'll send out recordings for you if you had to hop off midway through. But as always, just a pleasure talking to everybody, and hopefully this was useful for you. We'll see you on the next one, and have a great day.